Thank you very much, Adriana. And good morning, everyone. Am I loud and clear enough? Allow me to adopt adopt the protocols already established as my own as I speak about KAZA. And I would like to basically say that I'll try and answer some questions that I often get around KAZA. What is KAZA and what is a Transfrontier Conservation Area? And at the outset, let me also say that KAZA is so huge. It involves 5 partner states. And there are 3 questions that I also try to speak to. Because for such a huge area, 5 governments and various stakeholders, you need to agree on a number of fundamentals. What to work on, where to work, and how to work together. So I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation, these questions would have been answered somehow. Okay, how do we move with this? Okay, thank you. Let me immediately just move to the first slide. Kavango Zambezi, or KAZA in short, was established basically on the premise of connected conservation. And I've shared with you the statement from the Southern Africa Advent Community, which basically defines what we're talking about here. It's about connectedness insofar as the landscapes and the species, the people, and everything that we're trying to work on. And that's the definition of a TFCA. But I think it's also very important that we look at the history of transfrontier conservation areas. And the 2 phases you're seeing have been and were quite pivotal. That's Mr. Anton Rupert. And who can tell me the other gentleman? Hello? Hello? Okay, I'll tell you. Okay, head of state, yes, former head of state, Chisano, Mozambique. They met and discussed how can we use our shared natural resources to bring peace in our shared boundaries. And they deliberated. Mr. Anton Rupert at the time he founded an organization called Peace Parks Foundation. And from those deliberations, they brought in other people. I'm sure you can see another famous face. Who's that? Madiba. Yes. And they deliberated, how can we advance this idea of connected conservation across the continent? But let's start with our region. And it resulted in this map that you're seeing. The thinking, there was a study that was supported by the African Development, by the DBSA, kind of feasibility study on the possibility of transfrontier conservation areas. And that was done. And I think what I would like to point out is that this led us to what we're now talking about, transfrontier conservation areas in SADC. And is there a pointer here? Yes. So that's basically, is this what, I can't see if it's working. But anyways, what I want to mention is that transfrontier conservation areas generally involve a process of coming together, developing an MOU, and maybe even taking it to the level of a treaty, as in the case of KAZA. And in SADC, that was done. And what we have here is the 2023 to 2033 program for SADC, which has defined their scope of what to work on. And I think very important, I'm just sharing some information from a SADC level, Southern Africa Development Community level, before I zero in on KAZA. And there are 12 transfrontier conservation areas in the new programming under SADC. Before, there were 18, but there were reasons that were used to delist some because of lack of progress. And what you're seeing in the middle there, butterfly-shaped, is the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area. It's bigger than all the other TFCAs in SADC combined. KAZA currently accounts for almost 60% in geographical extent. If we're talking about KAZA in the context of a country, it's about the size of Botswana, 520,000 square kilometers. Now, this is a landscape blessed with globally significant resources and challenges that come with that. We're talking about challenges related to species depletion, human-wildlife conflict, and the rivers. KAZA is home to very important river systems, the Kavango and Zambezi river basins, which actually give KAZA its identity. These are just some of the challenges. One of the unique features about KAZA is wildlife connectivity and movement. We've done studies, elephants moving from Hwange into Botswana, into Angola, and different places. This connectivity aspect is key. So, a little bit more about KAZA. I'll not go into details, but what I want to mention here is that there aren't many places left on Earth as special as KAZA. KAZA will, for example, if you're talking about the people, 2.5 to 3 million people, we're talking about 19 national parks and 60 forest reserves, more than 22 conservancies, and more than 100 game management areas. When you're talking about KAZA, you're talking about Okavango Delta, Sodilo Hills, Victoria Falls. You're talking about the two river basins within which KAZA is located. When you're talking about KAZA, you're talking about the forests. There's a lot I can talk about KAZA. But I think I need to pause here and say that this would not have been possible without high-level political will and ownership. The KAZA Treaty, which I'll talk about very shortly, was signed in 2011. But I think what I want to underline here are the 4 points around collective belief in the vision by the partner states, and also intergovernmental support and strategic partners in terms of investments and unlocking investments and believing in this big vision, as well as detailed and participatory planning processes. Coming back to the KAZA Treaty, it is the basis for the institutional arrangements, which, for example, created the Secretariat that I'm privileged to lead. I hope I'm beginning to answer the question of how to work together. Now, the institutional arrangements are anchored on the treaty. And the treaty was preceded by an MOU. And once the MOU was signed in 2006, 5 years down the line, the treaty was signed in August in Angola. Those are just some pictures for the MOU signing and the launch of the KAZA. At the high level, ministerial level, in terms of the institutional structure, that's what it is. There's the Ministers' Committee. But interestingly, the heads of state say, hey, yeah, we know you have a treaty which defines and that you're going to meet at the ministerial level. Now they've met since 2011, I think around 16 times. It's not an easy feat. Hopefully, all going well, end of next month on the 31st, there's going to be the first ever KAZA summit. Now, you see, for those that were here yesterday, I spoke about the KAZA vision. See how tourism is written into the vision. And all that I spoke about inclusivity, about the beneficiation of the people that live in this wonderful area. And that's the mission. Again, the mission will tell you something on how to work together. If you check the last few words, it's about harmonization of policies. It's about harmonization of strategies and practices. And a lot has been done over the years in that regard, starting with a process of strategy and planning, development of master integrated development plan and country IDPs, integrated development plans at the country level, defining for each of the partner states the priorities on which to focus. But even in doing so, again, I'm answering the question of how to work together. You see the themes over there. The themes around natural resources management, livelihoods, around land use planning, tourism development, and infrastructure development. Here I'm trying to speak to the question of what to work on. Remember, I asked the question, what to work on? Those are just some various documents that have been developed to ensure harmonization. I'll pick an example of the KAZA Strategic Planning Framework for the Conservation Management of Elephants, a very small document which has done great things. It was on the basis of that strategic planning framework that the countries agreed to undertake the first ever coordinated KAZA-wide aerial survey of elephants across the 5 partner states using the same methodology. Here I'm giving an example of how to work together in line with the mission. Are you following me? Thank you. Just another set of documents on how to work together. I want to speak to just one, the livelihoods diversification strategy, which I believe is going to be approved in the next 3 weeks. Realizing the importance of livelihoods. There is a dedicated strategic document, and underpinning that document is actually a climate risk assessment focused on livelihoods for the people and how we can unlock opportunities, like what the minister was speaking about yesterday, how you are going to ensure that communities benefit from the assets, natural, cultural, and heritage resources in their areas. How they're going to benefit from non-timber forest products, wildlife, including the various value chains. There is this document, and our expectation as Secretariat is that the partners working in the landscape are going to use the framework provided by the diversification strategy to develop proposals. Again, here I'm just illustrating how to work together. Now, in summary, the point on thinking and what's the other word? Acting together was actually started way back in 2013 by the policy harmonization strategies around natural resource management, tourism, and the legal processes. And a lot's been done in that space. And implementation, KAZA is so huge, 520,000 square kilometers. And just to put in context, again, all the TFCAs in SADC combined are less than KAZA by at least now. It used to be 3 the times of Etosha. Now it's going to be about 8 times the size of Etosha following the delisting. Are you following me? So you need to agree on where to work and how to work together. What you have in yellow here are the yellow and red here are the wildlife dispersal areas. There is 6 of them. These are areas that are critical for wildlife movement, but they are not the popular imagination of areas which are not settled. There are people in some of these areas. The question is, how do you harmonize the utilization of the land, water, and other resources and ensure coexistence? So the ones in yellow have received dedicated support over the years. The ones in red, they're coming up. And thanks to Namibia, and I'll be talking about the courage to commit very shortly. Thanks to Namibia, there are plans that maybe, should Angola agree, the one part here, let me just show you, I don't know, this thing, the laser is not working. This part here might be an additional wildlife dispersal area, meaning that we'll have 7, but it's all because of the scientific work being undertaken, which has shown a lot of connectivity and wildlife movement, particularly elephants as a keystone species and therefore the others, between Angola, and that might be called the Kavango wildlife dispersal area. And that would entail what I call a courage to commit, expanding the size of KAZA from what it is. So I think it's also very important to mention that these, I already mentioned this issue of coordinated focus and thematic areas. I spoke about it when I spoke about the IDP. But I think this is also helping us in terms of how to work together. Now, this slide is very special, colleagues. I've just given you the geographical extent of KAZA, 520,000 square kilometers. At the time the MOU was signed, KAZA was about 200,000 square kilometers or so. By the time the treaty was signed, it had almost more than doubled. And I call that courage to commit. It's 5 partner states working together and saying, we don't care what the doubting Thomases are going to say. We're going to expand our vision. I will not spend time on this one. I think I've already spoken about harmonization, speaking to what the policy provides. But really, the importance of it is how you ensure that things are aligned. I have my good friend here, Simona. Sorry to mention your name here, but I just want to mention one thing. The Kwandu Nyanti Chobe River Code of Conduct and how Namibia and Botswana have been developing it. It's taken years, but once implemented, it will be a helpful document. It will be a helpful strategy that will harmonize how the shared watercourse system there is managed and utilized for tourism and other purposes. And we had very consultative processes over the years, including the private sector, the communities, everybody, the local authorities. And I think it's very important that we keep emphasizing this important aspect of harmonization of policies and strategies. And this cannot be done by the partner states on their own. What I have there are extracts from the KAZA Treaty and recognition that you need partnerships in many areas, and I have listed them. I'll not speak to them, but it's expertise, it's about finances, it's about implementation, working with everybody. And Maggie mentioned that tourism is for everybody, right? I also say that actually tourism is everybody's business. I always say that. And I picked that mantra from my previous experience where we used to say water is everybody's business. Who doesn't need water? Yeah. So again, just talking about partnerships, these are the various agencies that we are working with in the landscape. But allow me to pause here and mention and acknowledge the support from the Federal Republic of Germany that believed in the KAZA vision when there were so many doubting Thomases. And German government having invested more than 50 million euros in KAZA, working across the landscape to support initiatives in these 3 yellow wildlife dispersal areas, addressing human-wildlife conflict, infrastructure, livelihoods, and in addition to all that, we got an additional 4 million euros during COVID, and an additional 5 million euros is coming again related to COVID and climate impacts. So you need your partners, and that has encouraged the others to come on board, as listed here, quite a lot. But I think it's also very important to stress, dear colleagues, the important role of communities. We cannot do this without communities. They are the custodians of the wild lands in which the protected areas that we very much care for exist. They are key players and beneficiaries. And unless communities accept wildlife as a competitive land use option, we will not achieve much. So we are going to keep on beating the drum, supporting communities. Like I spoke yesterday, I think the central role of communities needs to be leveraged and promoted. There's a lot that I can say on communities, but to see a community member that is growing seed, this gentleman from Zambia is now growing seed that he's able to sell in the community, certified seed. And this is what we call real development. And we need to push ourselves to encourage communities and facilitate their involvement in various activities. We need to get our traditional leaders, but also this Namibia has done remarkably well. Civic science. Because for communities to understand the importance of wildlife, the importance of corridors, the importance of wildlife populations and quota setting, you need a mechanism for them to get involved. The event book system that Namibia has been promoting for many years, I don't have to tell you how important that is, and we're trying to roll it to the rest of KAZA. Now, colleagues, as I conclude, I started by showing you that slide of Mr. Rupert and President Chisano, Madiba, Prince Bernard of the Netherlands, Mr. Rupert, and many others that have come, including our own heads of state, successive heads of state. KAZA is a project under SADC whose aspirations and goals are very much aligned to regional integration and development goals. But also, as summarized here, I don't think I can say it any better. I think our Director of Ceremonies made that point, how we can ensure that we take advantage of being in one region, being closely linked, and lastly, I always say this, KAZA is a major initiative and an initiative that only seeks to ensure collaboration amongst the partner states, coordination and understanding. And by working together, we are assured of peace. The peace that we enjoy in this region actually is linked to KAZA. Who knows about the Battle of Quito? Hello? Aha. It's in KAZA. So please tell the KAZA story beyond wildlife. There is the cultural and heritage aspect and our history. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.